my name is Vlad. I'm founder and tech lead at Rushabs.io. At Rushabs.io, we build scalable and reliable mobile and web applications. And if you have any project in mind, feel free to contact us. So, objective of this tutorial is to learn how to retrieve images or files from private Supabase buckets using Flutterflow. So, why do we actually need private Supabase buckets? Sometimes you'll have to deal with very sensitive users' information, such as financial documents or medical documents. And to add some level of security, you can use private Supabase buckets. Private Supabase buckets do not contain a direct link to a file. Actually, if you want to get information from private Supabase bucket, you'll have to call a function to get a temporary link to this file. Unfortunately, Flutterflow does not currently support native integration with private Supabase buckets, and we cannot directly access those files in private Supabase buckets using Flutterflow. However, we actually can do this, and objective of this tutorial is to teach you how to do it. So let's start. So, in order to understand how we can retrieve images or any file from private Supabase buckets, let's take a look at documentation that is provided by Supabase and the code that can be used to retrieve those images from Flutter and Flutterflow applications. So, there is such a function called signed URL. This function creates a signed URL with some expiry time to your files in Supabase buckets. So let's take a look what do we need to pass here that we'll set up further on and that we'll use in this function. So from avatars, it means that here we should write a name of a bucket. This we actually set up ourselves and we will do it manually. So there is no need to create any custom action or custom code. Here it becomes a little bit more interesting. So here it actually asks for an exact path to this file. So let's understand how we can do it and create a strategy. So first of all, we need some sort of a folder in a bucket where we'll store all the information. It is quite simple. We can set this up manually, and we'll set this up. But usually those private Supabase buckets are created to show private information of dedicated users. So we'll need to create somehow automatically dedicated folder for a user, and those we cannot create manually. Yes, of course you can, but we'll do this automatically. So we'll need private Supabase buckets for a user, and we'll need to somehow retrieve name of a file. It is called avatar1.png, and actually we should also take into consideration that you can accidentally upload a lot of files into this private folder of a user. So we'll fetch the last one that is uploaded. So now we understand that we should create custom action to create a folder, user dedicated folder first. Then we'll need to fetch all the files in this private folder and receive the latest uploaded one. And we need to pass all those arguments into get signed URL into this function. So we'll need basically 3 custom actions, and we'll start doing those. So first of all, feel free to clone the app that we'll use in this tutorial, you can find it in the description below, or you can find it in the written article on our website. And actually, I highly recommend you to visit this article simply because it also contains all of the code that we'll use further in this tutorial. So make sure that you cloned this app first. Then please make sure that you also enabled Supabase integration. Please enter your API URL and anon key here, and that you set up the authentication. So you should enable authentication, set initial page as create account, and logged in page as profile. And with this setup, we actually can start doing magic. So this is actually a very basic app, and will manually trigger all the custom actions that we'll create during this tutorial, and we'll see how it works. So first of all, if you set authentication and Supabase integration up, let's actually first dive into the Supabase. So let's actually create some additional rules, row-level security rules that will apply to this bucket in order to make it a little bit more safe. And let's start. So you should enter this configuration tab, click policies, click new policy. We can actually get started quickly, and we'll give users access to only their top level folder named as UID. So we can use this template, but we'll make a little bit of adjustments here. So actually we'll do it like this. You can find this code on the website in the article section. So it is somewhere here. Yes, it is here. So we'll select all the operations, and let me explain the code a little bit. Here we give access to this bucket, and we give access to level 1 folder that you actually saw, profile pics, and to the folder that's named exactly as ID of a user. So that's it. We'll save this, and Supabase automatically created policy for each operations. So further on, please create a subfolder called profile pics in this bucket. I recommend to do it simply because you can create some additional folders in this bucket, but we'll need to define our profile pics somehow. So when you did this, please come back to Flutterflow, and let's start creating custom actions. So first custom action that we'll set up is to create a user's dedicated folder. So let's add this. Please click add action, new custom action. Please name this create users folder, and we'll return value, we'll return string, and this return statement is actually needed to show the error if we have any. So we do not have actually any arguments here. So let's code this. Okay, so let me find that we can actually enter here. So click save and compile this action. So while it compiles, I'll explain a little bit what's going on here. So actually, we first of all retrieve user's ID by using this this method. Supaflow is just a wrapper for your connection to Supabase. Client retrieves information of a client that is authenticated, and current user is the user that is logged in and will receive an ID. So this is the first one, and we'll use it to create, to name the folder exactly like this ID. Second one, stop for a file. Actually, unfortunately, this API does not allow us to create empty folder. However, we actually can paste a stub for a file or just empty binary file in this folder, and if we call this method, this method will actually automatically create folder for this binary file, and that is how we can bypass this obstacle. So, and finally, we'll create a file, a stub file, using upload binary method. We'll paste this folder into profile pics subfolder of a bucket. We'll use this folder name base as as the name of a file, and we'll name this file welcome user txt, and for a file we'll use this stub image. So we can see that it created successfully. So let's check that it actually works. Come back to widget tree, go to profile page, and let's bind this action to an actual container. So please select create bucket action container, go to action flow, open it up, add action. So we'll use our custom action, create user folder, custom action. So let's go further and we'll name our output like this in order to use it further on, and let's also trigger an animation in order to understand that this action has been actually triggered. So we'll use it like this, type anim, widget animation, and choose create bucket success icon. Let's hit close. So let it compile. We'll simply check that subfolder for our logged in user is actually being created when we hit this action. So it finally compiled. Let's click the action. So now we see that action was actually triggered. Let's come back to Supabase bucket, click reload. Voila! It created this folder with this stub file. That's great. Now let's come back to Supabase and set up an action to upload images to this bucket, and those images will actually fetch in our next action. So let's come back to profile page. Please click on the cart widget action, open action flow builder, add action. So upload save media, upload type Supabase. So let's use the data from Supabase, paste here profile pics bucket name, and for the upload folder path we'll use combine text. So here remember that we construct a path. So here we'll type profile slash, here we'll use the user ID of authenticated user, and let's actually create a subfolder in this folder, simply not to fetch our welcome user stub image, and let's call it profile image. Click confirm. Okay, everything else we can leave as it is. And also let's show a user ID of authenticated user. So in order to do this, please click on this text widget, click text, authenticated user, user ID. So let's now reload our run mode and check that the images that we upload to our private Supabase bucket are actually shown and actually uploaded. Okay, let's now check that it works. Gallery, our image, open, reload bucket. Voila, yes, the image has been uploaded. Wonderful. Now we can get to a point where we can create a new custom action that lists all the files from this profile image subfolder and gets the latest one. So let's come back here, create a new custom action. Let's name it get last uploaded file. So we'll also return a string in order to understand whether we made a mistake or not. We do not need an argument here, and please paste the code from the article, from the part with this custom action. I'll do it myself, click save, and let's compile it. And while it compiles, let me explain a little bit what's going on here. We have a part of a path where we need to retrieve ID of authenticated user. Then we have some variable that calls for this user ID, and we store it here in folder name base like in previous custom action. So for search options we'll get a little bit further, simply because it is a part of a method that is listed here. So we'll use method list from storage API that is used by the same package that we use to get sent URL, and that is actually already pre-installed in your Flutterflow applications. And let's take a look at the code of this method in order to understand what we can pass and what we should pass to it. It is located here. Link to this code you can actually find on the article as well, and it starts here. So basically we have two necessary options. We'll need path to folder where we fetch files, and search options. And actually this one will we define a little bit upper in this code. It has limit, offset, and sort by, and we'll use sort by. And let's come back and let me explain a little bit how we construct these search options. So for this to work, we call this function. We pass sort by argument, and in sort by we define how we actually sort it. So in column we use name. So basically we use name of file. Actually we have some other parameters of our file, so you can see that it's added on. So basically it's created date, last modified date, and some other metadata. Unfortunately, storage API does not allow you to use dates. It is simply not allowed. I do not know why. But we actually can use name of a file. See, when you upload any file to Supabase using Flutterflow, it gives it a numeric name, and as I observed, it actually increments it in a folder. So I assume that we actually can safely use it and sort by the name in descending order, and that is why we set it up to order it in descending. This if statement actually will throw an error and return an error if an error occurred. So we can see that it compiled successfully. Let's bind this action to front end, come back to profile page, go to get profile image container, go to action flow, open it, add action, custom, get last uploaded file. Please use this last profile image name as action output variable, and let's also call an animation to show that everything worked. And let's also use this action output name in order to show it on our profile page, to show the name of this last uploaded file. So go to here, text, and here we use action output last profile image name. Let's put null to default. Confirm. Now we can check whether this action works or not. You can see that it has defaulted value of action output to null. Let's call this action. Voila. So action works and it shows name of a last uploaded file to a folder. And finally, we can get to setup of this getSignedURL function. Let's come back to Flutterflow, go to Custom Actions section, click Add Action. Let's call it getSignedURL and copy and paste code from our website. Also, let's return string simply because we have to return this link and we have to return an error if there are any. And here we actually should set up an argument and we'll use our action output from previous action from get last uploaded file. We'll use this file name and we'll actually call this file name. Please make sure that it is called exactly like in a code. Let's click Save Parameters. So yes, let's code editor correct you if you made a mistake. Let's compile it, and while we compile it, let's just refresh our memories on what we pass here in order to get this signed URL link. So we need to finally construct a path to a name, and actually we already have all the prerequisites. So in this method we'll pass the bucket name, profile pics as a very first folder in our bucket. Then we'll pass this folder name basically our user's ID. Then we'll pass the profile image, as profile images are configured to be stored in this subfolder in user's dedicated folder. And finally, we'll get this file name that we receive from get last uploaded file custom action, and we'll pass it here. And finally, we have constructed the full path to a file that we need to get signed URL. And the last parameter is the expiry time in seconds. So it is defaulted to 60 seconds, so I just multiplied it by 60 in order to keep it valid for an hour. Okay, it finally compiled, and we can bind this action to our front end. Come back to profile page, get signed URL container, action flow, open, add action, custom action, get signed URL. Please pass an action output, last profile image name. So in order to get it, we'll have to press our action to get last uploaded file name first, and let's also set the action output variable name in order to show it on front end. And also let's add widget animation to understand that it worked. Get signed URL success icon, and let's show an output of this action, our signed URL string. Let's default it to null, confirm, and let's reload it. So okay, let's get profile image, and now we have this action output to pass to get signed URL function. Let's press get signed URL, and wonderful, we actually have this link. You see that it is much longer than common URL link from Supabase, simply because it also includes token and it also includes expiry time. So even if a link to this file is exposed, if it is used after expiry time, it simply won't work. So now let's come back to front end and set up a workflow to show this image here, simply because that's why we actually started this tutorial. So now let's come back to profile page. Let's choose image widget, go to path section, copy this image path, simply because we'll use it as a default value. Please click conditional value, if then else, simply because we'll use a condition. And actually I think that I forgot one thing that we should set up first. First, we actually need to set up local page state variable that will use to store get signed URL image, and then we'll use this page state variable first to check that it is not empty, and we can show this signed URL, and if it is empty, to show default image. So let's call it image link, set it to image path, and make it nullable, simply because it does not always contain some sort of link. And also we need to come back to custom code, and we need to change return value of our getSignedURL function to image path, simply because we will actually pass this custom URL image path to our page state variable. And you see that also an error occurred simply because we're passing image path to a string here. Let's remove it for now. And while the code compiles, let's finish setting up image path here. So let's copy it once again, choose conditional value, choose conditions, single condition, choose page state, our image link page state variable, and let's check that it is simply set. And if it is set, then we'll display this page state variable. So go to page state image link, else paste this default value, click save. Let's check that the code compiled. So let's finish. Let's wait for it to finish, and when it's finished, let's rerun our application and check that it actually shows any value. Okay, now let's check it. Get profile image, we got it. Get signed URL, okay. So let's come back. Okay, I think that I forgot another thing to add here, is that actually when we call this action, we should store action output in this variable that we have recently set up. So please come back to profile, come back to getSignedURL container, go to action flow, and add another action under our custom action, page state, update page state, choose our variable, set value, and set it to action output, signed URL string, update type rebuild current page, simply because we want it to be rebuilt in order to check once again that value in this image link page state variable is not null, and show an image if there is any. Now let's reload it and let's check whether it shows this image that is located in our user's dedicated folder. Let's get profile image, we have it. Let's get signed URL, and you can see that it instantly reloaded and showed this image. So actually we're finished. That's how you can get signed URL. So I hope that you liked this tutorial, and if you did, please click like button below and subscribe to the channel. we're going to post many more tutorials covering Supabase and Flutterflow and many more instruments that will help you to build your projects. And if you have any particular project in mind, feel free to contact us. A link to our website will be in the description below. So have a great day. Bye.